Welcome back, CSE 121 to EX28, the dreaded EX28. The hardest part is probably getting the GUI together because there's just a lot of work, a lot of code, a lot of things that you can easily screw up and type in wrong. But once you got it set up, then it's just a matter of doing some Python functions and some coding, which you've done in the past, and it's just a matter of putting it all together. And I have some of this kind of done for you, so it's just a matter of piecing things together. And just to review what we did the last time, not that we have to review it, but we kind of created this interface here of RunningPace calculator. We have labels, which is all basically the text. We have 3 buttons, which is use today, show pace, and save. And we have entry fields, which is 1, 2, 3. Then we have 4, 5, 6, and then 7 is our last entry field. So we're going to enter things in this field, the minutes, seconds, and miles, and possibly the date, or we can hit the button and put in today's date, which doesn't work right now. So none of these buttons work. So the first button we're gonna try to get to work is really the show pace. Even though the use today is showing up here, we're gonna try to we'll get the pace done first, and then we'll worry about the date and then the last part. So I'm gonna move this over so things are out of our way. We don't really need to see that, and I'll just hit stop up there. And then I'll open this up because I have some stuff for you here. And I mentioned the first part we're gonna do is the running pace. And just so you know, it's going to be under show pace. So you could even go down and do this right away. You could go down to the button. The button for show pace is button 2. So I'm going to look for button 2 down here. And here's button 2, show pace. Well, it says show pace, so that should help. And put a comma after this. And I'm going to put show pace. And remember, you do not have to, or command equals. You're going to put command equals show pace. And I'll stretch that out so it looks kind of normal. It'll look like that. And you're not going to put the parentheses after this. There are parentheses in here, so remember to have the one at the end, but it's going to be show pace. So we're going to make a function called show pace. And we're going to do that above everything. And we don't have to import anything else right yet because we're not doing a DateTime and we're not doing a CSV. So we're just going to do def show pace. And we do have to put our parentheses here because this is regular Python. And now what you can do, and this will be easy for you, remember you're going to get information from those fields. So you're going to get information from entry 1, entry 2, entry 3, and we use kind of a get command to do that. So what we're going to do is, I have some code for you that'll help you out. You could go here to the running pace one, and you can copy this whole thing. Copy that whole thing and just copy it and then go back to main, and we're going to put it in here, and you can highlight all of this, I believe, and hit tab. I think they'll let you tab it over in here, and then it's part of that function. Now most of this is done for you because you already did this in the past, and I make sure everything worked out okay. You're still going to have to display it and you're still going to have to get the information, but I tried to do as much so you didn't have to be dealing with all that because that was so long ago that you did that. But in here, instead of 0, what you're going to do is you're going to do a get. And you're going to say entry 1.get. And then in here, instead of the 0, it's going to be entry 2.get. And then instead of the 0 here, and notice this one's a float because even the minutes, seconds, and miles. Minutes are just going to be minutes like 25. The seconds are going to be seconds like 38. And they won't go over 60, or they won't go over 59, and then this will be entry 3. So we're going to get this information. So now that we're getting the information, we're saving them as variables, and that way we already are using them here, so you shouldn't see any red wavy lines. So we're getting this information, we're getting the minutes, and we're using minutes divided by miles and getting kind of a decimal amount, and then we're converting the minutes per miles to complete seconds, and then we're getting a seconds per miles, and that's also a decimal amount. And then we're adding them all together, so we just have total seconds, and then we're dividing seconds by 60 and getting 8.05, but that isn't our time because 0.05 is a percentage of seconds. It's not 0.05, it's not 05 seconds, it's actually 5%. It's actually 5% of 60, which whatever that would be. But then we'll figure that out. Then we're doing that down here. And then we're also taking our 8.05 and we're making another variable of it that's actually just an int. And I even put int in the name, and then we convert it to an int, so that cuts off the 0.05. So we have 8. And then down in this one, in the seconds per mile, we're kind of cutting that off. We're basically saying 8.05 minus 8 and times 60. So that'll give us that little bit that we're kind of putting together. That'll give us that'll actually be 3 seconds. So that way we'll have the 8 seconds if we're using this time, and that's what I did. And then we're going to get 3 seconds. 0.05 is going to get converted to 3 seconds, and there's even one more conversion to get it converted to an integer because it tries to do it as a float since it's doing division. It actually puts like a 0.0 after it, and it's going to extend that. So we'll make sure that we convert that to just an integer, and then this just converts it into strings that prints out real nice. So it just has a time, a colon, and the time. So it has 2 digits, colon, 2 digits at the end. Now we still have to display it in our area. So we're getting it here. So hopefully we're getting all that information. And where we're going to display it is in ENT7. So, and we already have a variable of what we're going to display. This is the variable of what we're going to display. So all that we want to do after here is just do ENT7 dot, and we'll always do delete first, just to wipe it out, so it doesn't add on anything if you do that more than once. So we'll just do delete 0 to end, and then we're going to, actually this time we're going to insert. And we'll call this one insert. It's going to go from 0, it's going to be pace. So it's going to put pace in there. So you put the variable of what the value is going to be in there. So starting at 0 and ending at whatever pace ends at, that's what you're going to put in there. So that should put in the pace. That should put this variable in ENT7. So that's the show pace function. And again, a lot of this was done for you so you didn't have to go through and do all that math. It's not a lot of fun. Unless you enjoy this kind of math, converting seconds to decimals to seconds and all that isn't a lot of fun. But let's see if this works. That's our first function, and we did put it on our button, so that's on our show pace button. So let's kind of start this off again and run it, see what happens. And I'm going to put in, I'll use the sample that I had. I'm going to use 2459, and that should come out to like 803. And miles is 3.1, which is 5K. And we don't have to worry about use today because that doesn't work, but the show pace should display it down here. And I think I put a comma in there. I was looking to see, it's really hard to see. So let me put in 3.1, make sure I have a decimal. Let me try it again. And that's okay. So it even said down there, it showed I had a comma in there. So that's hard to see. This is really tiny, it's hard to see. So that works. So that's our first part. So that wasn't too hard. So we got that in there, especially with the code done for you. A lot of the code was done for you. So that's one function. The next function we could do is the date, which is going to be, I guess I'll look at the bigger one. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use today's date, and we're going to display it there. Or we're going to allow you to put in a date, but let's just use today's date. We're going to put it just a date and enter it there. That'll be one function, and that'll be pretty easy to do. So we'll make another function. I'll just put it after here, and I'll call it, this will be the use today function, because that'll be today's date. And what we'll do for date time, and I had notes on this and all different kinds of things, but basically we are going to need to import this module, the DateTime module, and they have a little thing here called DateTime.date.today, which will pull today's date, and it writes it in a short date, so it doesn't write a long timestamp. And if you look at the other samples that I had in your notes and in documents and resources, you'll see that long timestamp that has a time and all that, but we only want the date, so that's what we're doing. So we only really want this part. So we're going to import date time, and I'm just going to take this, and I guess I could copy this, and I'm going to go back to here. Well, I'm going to go back to main. I'll put this in here, and I'll just put under here. You could put commas, but I'm just going to put import date time up top, and then down here we're not actually going to print this out, but it says use today, and it says short date equals date time, and we're not going to print out short date. What we're going to do is we're actually going to insert it down here. Now this is a little more tricky because we're not putting the full, remember this thing has 3 parts, so there's the first part, the second part, and the third part. There's the month, day, and the year. So see, I even had to make this more confusing. I couldn't just put the date there. We have to do, and it's in month, day, and year. So what are we going to do with that? Well, we already have the short date, and we're going to display them. So let's use this this insert, and we're not getting it from anywhere. So we're going to put this here, and we'll do the first one, and that's actually 1, 2, 3. That's 4. So 4 is going to be the month. That's where we're going to do the month part, and we're going to delete 0 to end, and we're going to insert, and we could use, I guess, short date. Except we don't want to put the whole date in there. What we actually want to do is we want to put square brackets, and we want to put just the first part. Now, if you don't know what happens, all right, here's under Documents and Resources, Online Books and Resources. I originally had these at the end of our resources, and I have one where it has DateTime module, and I have another forked kind of thing here. And what you could do with this is just kind of, it's finished, so you could just kind of preview it, just so you could see what I'm talking about. But if you run this thing here, you could see this is what the short date looks like. It'll say 2019-4-12, or here it's saying -5-4. That's today's date, and this is the long timestamp. So we don't want this long timestamp. What we actually want is just this. And what we're going to do, and actually I'm going to copy this, and just so we know what it's going to look like. So I'm going to just close this out, but I just wanted to show you that first, and there is code to look at that. But if I go back here, and I could even put it here too. So let me put it here. Now the short date, what we want, if we're just going to put the month first, it's actually going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I guess 4. I guess we could go to 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Starting at 5. And ending at 7. It always goes one past it. So we're going to start at 5, 6, and then 7. It doesn't include 7. So hopefully that should print out an 05. So we're basically going to do 5. Assuming this prints out as a string, we're going to take the characters, almost like a substring of this, and hopefully it'll come out as a string. If we had an issue, we just have to convert it to a string. But that's how we're going to get the month. So this part will be the month. And then the next part will be the day. So I'll just copy this again. The day will be from 7, 8. It looks like from 8 till the end. So we could just do 8 and don't even put an end. Just put a colon. So from 8 till the end to wherever it ends should be the date. So that should start it right here. So whatever the date is, whether it's 1 or 2 digits, it should start it there. So that would actually be, and this would be 5, because this would be in the next field. Remember, what we're talking about is in here. See, this is entry 4, this is entry 5, this is entry 6. And then the next one we're going to insert is entry 6, and that's going to be the year. So that should just be 0 through 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That should just be 0 through 4. That should be those characters. 0, 4. So when you hit the Use Today button, it should display those characters in those fields. Now we're going to check out and see if that works before we do anything else. So we're going to try that out and see if we need to convert anything to a string or whatever, see if this short date needs to be a string. And now before we do that, remember that's button 1. We already did button 2, so that's button 1. Obviously this is really tiny here, but this is button 1, the Use Today. So we're going to go on button 1 and put that function on there as a command. So we're going to go look for button 1, and it's not in the grid, it's down here, and here it is. And I'll just put a comma, and I'll say command equals use today, and I don't think I put any spaces or anything in there. So that's going to look like that. You can just click on that, and I'm going to stop this, and maybe I'll even refresh it and run it again and seeing if we can get that date. That's all we're worried about right now. We should already have the pace. Now we're just going to put the date in there, and I'll still put the minutes in. I'll put the 24:59, and I'll put the 3.1, and there's my pace, and let's see if Use Today works. And it doesn't, is not subscriptable. What that means when it's not subscriptable, it means it's not a string. So we got to make it a string. That's all we have to do. It's not a big problem. We just have to go here into our code, and we could just do this. After we get this information from here, this is where we're subscripting it from here, But what you could do after you get short date is just do short date, or you could just do like a string around it, but I'm going to do it in 2 steps just so you can see what's happening. And I'm going to convert it to a string and then just put short date inside here so that it's converting. So short date's now going to be a string that we're getting from there. So after we're getting this thing, that's what it's generating, then we're going to convert it to a string. And that should work. And I'm just going to hit this button. I won't worry about these. And there it is. There's our date. Now we left the 0 in there. That's okay. And that's fine. And our show pace will probably get an error because we don't have anything. It's telling us not to put anything in there. So we'll get, if you did hit show pace, you'll get some kind of error in there because you're trying to do math and stuff that we don't have anything in there. But if I go back and put something in, now we have I put a different time in there. So that's that. So the last part we're going to do here is we're actually going to take this date and put it into a CSV file. And then we're also going to make sure that we can get whatever date. Part of getting the CSV file is going to be taking the date from here. So we don't have anything to do with this anymore, and we don't have anything to do with show pace anymore. Everything that's going to happen from here on in is going to happen on the save button. So the save button is going to pull this information from here, even if you enter it. So we're going to have to make sure that we can capture that information too. But this was the hard part, getting that today's date in there. So otherwise, we're just doing get from entry fields, and then putting them into we're putting them into a list, really. We're just going to put the date into a list, and then we're going to take this pace and put it into a list. So that's what we're going to do for the last part. So I'm going to stop here after part 2. Now that we have the date in there, and you could certainly enter your own date, but now we're going to use the save button and basically put it in a CSV file. So that'll be part 3.